Business cash flow is often very tricky for a lot of owners. And what this can do is leave an absorbent amount of cash in the business, create a lot of confusion on what can actually be taken out of the business or put back into it for growth. And at the same time, well, how do I use my business to build my personal wealth versus letting it be my wealth over the course of time? Because of this question, well, most of the time people will either leave a lot of money in their business or at the same time, they run their business very lean, not knowing, well, how do I handle these situations as they present themselves? When you're a pass through entity, such as a sole proprietor, a partnership, an S corporation, all of the profits that that business makes gets pushed over to your personal tax return so they can figure out how much you're going to pay in tax. So why aren't you actually benefiting from it yourself? A good rule of thumb to be able to follow when you're looking at your business, if your business is very cyclical, meaning that it fluctuates a lot, so the revenue is up one month, down another month, or you go through seasons, we might want to consider having maybe 1 to 1.5 times expenses in cash inside the business. If you want to push for 2 months, that's perfectly fine. And a good rule of gauge that you can focus on here is salaries, because well, you have to pay your team. There's very limited times where you're going to have to dig into that much cash, but as a good buffer, a good rule of thumb, hey, probably between 1 to maybe 2 times you'd want to keep in there. And if you are a business that is pretty consistent, steady, and you're seeing even more growth over time, you could probably get away with maybe 3/4 of the expenses or at least 1 times whatever your employee salaries are in a given month. So as a good gauge, well, anything that's in excess of that should be either used to help enhance the profitability of the business or should be transferred over to your personal balance sheet to build personal wealth. The last thing you want to do is get later on in your career, you're ready to sell your business, and your entire plan has become dependent on that sale. And most times, people are unsure what they can actually get for the sale of their business. And there's this big question mark of, well, what's going to happen next? So if you can get into a strategy or a plan to where you're actively creating what we call a dead cash number, so anything beyond that operational fund that you keep in your business would be useful to start sweeping and putting it onto your personal balance sheet so you can start building up other assets that have different tax characteristics to them. They have different risk factors and maybe different accessibility so you can get to them for certain circumstances. And a good gauge is to take a look at what you're taking as a W 2, what you're actually making in profits, and multiplying that by 20%. So, for instance, a number, if it's 200,000, the goal would be at least $40,000 a year. And if part of it's salary and then part of it's business, there's a structure that we show people how to set up to really be able to capture these opportunities. And along the way, well, the goal here is to get on a continual flow of, well, I'm taking money and putting it in my personal plan, and then I'm also keeping money inside the business. If you're running your business like this, where you don't have a structure, there's a good chance you're going to get to the end of all of this and not have additional assets to supplement the sale of your business. Or at the same time, you could be a person that starts keeping a lot of money in your business and then using it for things that are not very useful for you from a planning perspective. And a good rule of thumb to follow here is that how are those assets that you're accumulating, what are they going to do for retirement income purposes for you? So if you were to take it and use it towards debt repayment or put it back into the business and not sure on the profits, how does it really help you? If you want to take a look at what you're currently doing, reach out to us, fill out our contact form. We're always happy to chat.